Okay, so today we are learning about the chapter known as Control and Coordination in CBSE 10th. Okay, so if I talk about control and coordination, what does it mean? Simple terms, control. Okay, if I talk in terms of simple language, control means controlling something. That is, the access of the behavior of a particular thing is in your hand. Imagine controlling a remote controlled car. What you do is you control the car with the help of remote, and of course the remote is in your hands, while the car, of course, what it does is it goes or it rides in a particular way as that of you assign a order. And what about coordination? Coordination, very basic and very simple thing, is coordinating amongst one another. Supposingly, if I have a chunk of food in front of me, what will I do? I am supposed to eat this. So what will I do? I'll take few of it in my hand, and then my hand coordinates in such a way that the bolus or maybe the chunk of food that I have taken in my hand directly goes into my mouth. My hands do not allow it to go into the ear or maybe eyes or maybe nose. Rather, the hand moves in such a way that it coordinates with the mouth for intake of food. So this in common term is what is control and what is coordination. Now in the last chapter what we looked upon was the life processes. In those we learned about the nutrition system, we learned about the respiration system, we learned about the transportation system, and last but not the least, we learned about the excretion system. Now we are going to learn in today's chapter what and how does this system operates. Okay, so if there are this system which operates particular function in your body, there is a system which operates the control and coordination of your body. So how is your body controlled? Okay, there are various physical factors of control as well as chemical factors of control. So if I talk about physical factors, how is your body controlled? For a simple thing, our body is controlled and balanced in such a way that when we stand, we have a proper control towards our body. The body does not fall, the body does not collapse, the body stands, the body walks. Okay, maybe you can dance, you can swim, you can perform various other activities. There are various other activities, and as we all know, what we do in today's work is multitasking, listening to a lecture, then writing down notes, and then like listening to what a friend has said to you and everything else. So all these tasks are done efficiently as well as simultaneously in our body. So that is basically control and coordination which takes place in all the living things, not just humans. So if I talk about all the living things, the all living things includes plants and animals. Okay, so let me first emphasize upon the factor of animals, and then we will come on to the control and coordination in plants. So if I talk about animals such as primitive organs have each cell in coordination with another, but as the multicellularity increases, as the organism becomes complex, there is a certain system which is assigned to that organism which take care of the control and coordination part. Now this system in what we are taken care of is the nervous system. Okay, Now, what does this nervous system consist of? If I talk about the nervous system, it consists of many things. Okay, so let's step by step understand how is this nervous system made up of. The very first thing that has a nervous system is the brain. Okay, now the brain, as you all know, is located in the skull above our eyes. So after the brain, whatever we have is the spinal cord, which runs behind in a backbone. Now this brain and spinal cord regulates all the actions, all the coordination throughout our body. But since the brain is located in your head and spinal cord in your backbone, it is not, they cannot reach to the fingertip of your hand or maybe the toe tip of your leg. So for that, they have created various network of nerves which supply to each and every part of the body. So this various network of nerves supply to each and every part of the body. Now these nerves are made up of specialized neural cells, also known as the neurons. Along with the neurons, there are accessory cells such as the neuroglial cells. Okay, so when we are talking about the nervous system in animals, the simple thing that comes in our mind is how do each and every organ or maybe each and every part of the body has specific functions or can perform specific functions, such as when I talk about our nose, the function it performs is of course respiration, but apart from that is smell. When I talk about mouth, the function it does, it's of course the starting of digestion, that is the physical churning, but apart from that, what it does, it's taste. Supposingly there were no taste buds, will you be able to differentiate the different taste of foods? No. Of course, a pizza or a burger will taste same like that of dal khichdi. But when you have taste buds, you know what does that food taste like. Fine. So this is what happens, and this is how we learn that there are various nervous systems, organs, or maybe organ is the brain and the spinal cord of course, and various networks of nerves and various nerve cells. The nerve cells are present throughout our body. Whenever we pinch a finger or maybe the leg, whenever you walk spontaneously and you hit by a table or a sharp object in between your leg, the feeling that you get is because your active nervous system in your legs. So we will talk about the nervous system. What is the basic of the nervous system? That is the neurons. So if I talk about neurons, a simple diagram of neuron will be present of a nucleus along with cyton, and a long tail-like structure known as the axon, along with axonal terminals, and are eyes of the dendrites. Okay, so this is the neuron, a basic functional and structural unit of the nervous system. It is supported by the neuroglia, or what we call it as Schwann cells. And these Schwann cells have the node of Ranvier. Okay, so what happens is the impulse. Okay, impulse is a sensation which is produced in response to the sensory receptors. Now we will learn that what is sensory, what is motor, what is like all the receptors in the later part. But whenever there is an electrical impulse from the dendrites, it passes to the cyton, and from the cyton, let me change the color so it understands better. Dendrites to the cyton, from the cyton to the axon, from the axon to the axonal bulbs. And you all know any surface or any neuron has a gap in between it, and that is known as the synapse. Okay, now what happens is when the electrical impulse has been passed via the neural cells, that electrical impulse will go through the axon and come to the synapse, and in synapse that electrical impulse makes the release of chemical substance. Therefore, our nervous system is somewhat electrical and chemical in nature, and when this chemical substance are released on supposingly say muscle, okay, if this part is the muscle, and if this electrical impulse, electrical signals releases a chemical signal on the muscles may contract or relax depending upon the situation that it faces. So this is the understanding of how the neuron works. Now we will understand how the neuron works in whole as a nervous system. So for that, what you need to know is, first thing, reflex action. Okay, so what is a reflex action? So sorry. A minute. What is a reflex action? If I talk about reflex action, let me explain you all certain scenarios wherein there is something which is involuntary. Now what is involuntary? Anything which is not in control of our brain, or maybe it's in control of our brain but not in control of our thinking capacity, are the involuntary actions which is not controlled by us, like breathing. Okay, so if I talk about a very like a container containing very hot water, okay, and you were unaware of that container as it was covered, and accidentally you happen to touch the container, what goes is this reflex symbol which says that it is very hot, and there is a sudden reaction of withdrawing your hand. Why? Because you need not want to touch the hot container. Now in this, you did not even think what to do, but your hand was withdrawn very quickly. Okay, so what happens in such a situation is the reflex arch. Now we will study how is the reflex arch and how does it work. So let me spare a few moments, let me draw the diagram. Okay. I need to rub this, I'm so sorry. Okay, so I'm purposefully using some colorful paints that you all understand. Okay, so let me explain this diagram. First thing, this is a tin containing hot water. What you have done is you put the hand inside that tin. So the very first thing is you sense that the water is hot. So there is a neuron or the neuroreceptor known as the sensory receptor. Why sensory receptor? Because you can sense, okay, the water was hot. Now this sensory receptor travels to the spinal cord. This is the spinal cord. This is the white matter. This is the gray matter. Okay, so this sensory receptor travels through the spinal cord, wherein the message has been sent to the gray matter. Now in the gray matter there is a relay receptor, and as we know, when there is a synapse in between the neurons, the chemical message converts. So there is a message of the water being too hot, in which the relay receptor will convert the message of withdrawing the hand, and that message has been sent to this red color receptor, and this is known as the motor receptor. Okay, and this motor receptor, what it does, this is the muscle. It makes the muscle contract such that your hand is withdrawn. Now this process takes in merely a fraction of seconds. Why? Because if you wait till the message goes to the brain and the brain sends the impulse and again the message comes back to the brain, there will be a lot of wastage of time. So in certain situation, spinal cord takes in some decision and the hand is easily withdrawn without any further delay. Then the message is being transcribed to the brain. So this immediate reaction to the action of certain harmful or maybe unnatured substance is known as the reflex reaction, or what we call it as the reflex arc. Now the sensory receptor or the sensory neurons are those neurons which carry the message from the organ to the spinal cord and the brain. Motor neurons are those neurons which carry the message from the brain or the spinal cord to the organ. So which relays the message from the organ to the brain is known as sensory receptor. What relays the message from brain to the organ is motor receptor. So this is how the reflex arch is being formed. After we learning about the reflex arch, let us move on something which is very interesting and it is known as the human brain. Allow me to rub the board. So if I talk about brain is the only organ which is considered to be the decision making, and of course in some cases spinal cord, as that we have learned right now. The brain is the main organ of the body, or what we call it as the most vital organ of the body, of course along with heart, because heart is the one that circulates and pumps blood throughout the body. But brain is equally important because due to the activities in the brain, we are able to perform our daily tasks. If the brain is shut down partially, the patient becomes vegetative, or often known as the comatose. But if the brain is shut down completely, the person will die. Why is it so? Why such things? We will learn about the brain in detail. So let us talk about something known as the central nervous system, the peripheral nervous system, and the autonomous nervous system. We will now emphasize on the central nervous system. If I talk about the central nervous system, it consists of brain and spinal cord. Peripheral nervous system consists of all the nerves which join brain and spinal cord. Fine. So let us talk about the human brain. I'll quickly draw the diagram of the human brain, or it is a rough diagram, of course. For more knowledge, or for more of understanding of what I am speaking, you better look into page number 118, diagram number 7.3, the human brain. Bad drawing, of course. But if I talk about one thing, this is the forebrain. Now this forebrain consists of cerebrum. Okay. Now this is the hindbrain. It consists of cerebellum. Fine. This is pons viruli and this is medulla oblongata. All three consist of hindbrain. This is the pituitary, fine, along with the thalamus and the hypothalamus. Sorry. Okay, so if I talk about the whole brain is divided into three sections. The forebrain, the midbrain and the hindbrain. So let's talk about the forebrain. What is the forebrain made up of? The forebrain is made up of the major portion of the brain, that is 70 to 80% of the brain, that is the cerebrum of the brain. Now what is cerebrum? Cerebrum is a dense structure which is encephalated, that means it has creases, okay, and this cerebrum is compactly packed with the grey matter outside and the white matter inside. Now what is grey matter? When you see a neuron, anything which does not have sheet cells is known as a grey matter. Anything which has sheet cells is known as the white matter. So cerebrum is the main part, and cerebrum has the major functions in the body. Now if I talk about the midbrain is usually the brain which controls your hormonal growth. Okay, so the thalamus, the hypothalamus, the pituitary are all glandular portions which synthesize hormones and other proteins. So if I talk about hindbrain, why is it known as hindbrain? For two reasons. Midbrain is not seen. Okay, it is inside the brain. Inside the brain, hindbrain is located behind. So the very first reason why it is known as hindbrain is because it is located behind, and the second reason is because it has cerebellum, pons viruli and medulla oblongata, which performs involuntary functions. Now the voluntary functions are performed by the forebrain and the involuntary functions are performed by the hindbrain. We will take a look of how the voluntary functions are provided or performed by the forebrain. So the very first thing what the forebrain has, it's different part, okay, parietal, frontal, occipital, temporal, various parts, and each section of this forebrain has some of the other capacity of doing or performing tasks. Supposingly the thinking power of the brain comes from the forebrain. The ability to learn and memorize comes from the forebrain. The intelligence and the ability to do various things come from the forebrain. So there are various areas of association of certain facilities such as thinking, multitasking, storage, memory, etc. So this is the forebrain. Okay, the forebrain is the main center for sensory association. Now, what do you understand by the term known as the sensory association? We just now learned in the reflex arch that the neuron which carries the message from the organ to the brain is known as sensory neuron, and the brain performing such activities or creating such data and then processing the data and giving reactions is part of the motor area. Okay, so what does the motor area does? Motor areas along with the cerebellum helps in maintaining of the posture, helps in other various activities. Okay, why do we get ourselves balanced? That is because of the motor area. Why do we perform activities? Nowadays it is a trend that whenever you see on YouTube, whenever you see on Instagram, what you all notice is all of the things, okay, all of the things which are being performed are drastically good. Supposingly dancing, you cannot perform that kind of dance unless and until you have that practice, but those dancers perform that so well that they receive appreciation, and you often wonder how is this achieved. Let me tell you, the answer lies with the hindbrain. The hindbrain is so much developed that that task or that balancing activity is being done efficiently. Okay, so this is what a hindbrain is. Hindbrain is also in connection with the leg muscles which contracts and relax and everything. But if I talk about the cerebellum, what is its function? Okay, the cerebellum functions as the involuntary part of the brain along with the pons and the medulla, of course. But anything which is voluntary is usually controlled by the cerebellum, like thinking, like dreaming, or maybe speaking, or maybe hand movements, or maybe dancing. Anything which is voluntary is performed or controlled by cerebrum. Now anything that is involuntary, that is not in our hands, like breathing, okay, like digestion of food, okay, passage of food, anything which is not in our hand is done by cerebellum. Okay, so this is the major difference in between cerebrum and cerebellum. Okay, so if I talk about riding a bicycle or maybe doing some physical activity, cerebrum is involved. If I talk about sleeping and snoring, of course cerebellum is involved. So this is how the cerebrum and cerebellum works along with the other parts of the brain. Now let us come on to how this brain is protected. Now the brain is protected via a thin covering known as the meninges. Now this meninges has fluid in between and outside known as the cerebrospinal fluid. Okay, so this fluid helps in against any kind of friction or anything which is not acceptable by the brain. And meninges on other hand protects the brain not from the physical injury. Of course, for the physical injury what we have is the skull, which is made up of bone, and therefore the brain is protected by the skull, which avoids any physical injury. But what if certain pathogen invades the brain, like how COVID-19 is invading the lungs? So So similarly, meninges protects the brain from such pathogens so that the brain is safe. Okay, the cerebrospinal fluid is for exchange of food materials and oxygen, of course, so that the brain is safe, efficient and working. So this is how your nervous system works. Okay, now I have explained you in brief how does a neuron work. The neurons present in brain are of course the action points of the movement that we perform. So each and every neuron in brain has to be efficient in order to work or coordinate our body in harmony. So this is basically everything about the nervous system, or maybe the control and coordination in humans. Now we will come upon to the control and coordination in plants.